So, you ready for a confession? Do I have a choice? Not really. So, I was like in a private school whose name I won't say because I don't want to get in trouble. Because legally, I think I'm not allowed to do that, to say whatever I think or experience. So, I come to the school, and it's supposed to be like this method, and she's like the kindergarten teacher. He's like my son's age, and he's like, "Oh, you have so much energy." Like the first thing he says to me when he sees me, "You have so much energy. You have to speak much more quiet." Later on, this proves to be such a sad joke because guess who don't learn to speak quietly? The children. That's right. We were like over 30 kids in a small room, all the windows closed. There's air conditioning. How very ecological as well, because we're on a farm kind of thing setting. And the windows are all closed. Even though you could have just opened windows, it would have been okay letting fresh air in, but no. 33 kids are in a closed room, and the noise level was, I don't know how the kids were insensitive to the fact that it was really difficult, but I was the problem. Okay, so he said, "You're not allowed to speak to the children." I was like, I should have left the minute he said that, but of course, I'm a person who says, "Okay, let's try." I mean, there's in yoga like you're silent. So I said, "Okay, I'll be silent." But kids come up to you and they say, "What's your name?" And what are you going to do? You're going to answer them, no? So I tried just to smile, and then I thought, oh, I got to answer. And this boy came, and he showed me this really nice book, and he was really excited because he just got it signed by the person who wrote it. It was a book about animals in the city, and it had songs, and it was so nice. And I was just looking at it, and he wanted me to read a little bit. And then the kindergarten teacher shows up, and like, no, 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 you're not allowed to read. It's not allowed. It's against the rules. Okay. So the boy's reading to me, and I'm listening. Then another girl is talking to me, and she asks me a question. And then, I start to answer, and I get these dirty looks from the kindergarten teacher. No, no, do not speak to the children. Okay. Then I'm not allowed to speak to the children. Then I see this little boy chasing other kids with scissors. Now, I worked in kindergartens a lot, and I'm sorry if I saw this in the street. I'm the kind of person that can't ignore it. Even though lately I've noticed that most people do ignore things, but I'm not one of them. So then I whispered to the teacher's assistant next to me, "What do you do? What do we do? Look, has the scissors." So she goes to him, "Put the scissors down." And I'm like, is that the language of the school? It doesn't sound different than any other language. So then, finally, the breaking point was when they were doing circle times. Now, the kids are sitting. He doesn't give them any instructions that they should maybe lower their voices. They're speaking in really loud voices. And there's no music allowed, of course. So it's all loud, very loud speaking kids. First, there was a shh. And then they just let the kids do whatever they want. Then I realized they think that this method, which is really not, it's really not about lack of limits. They think they should just let the kids do whatever. And the parents pay a lot of money for the kids to learn to do whatever they want and have no limits. I mean, do you really seriously need in Israel to teach kids not to have limits? I don't think so. And so I'm talking to the teacher's assistant quietly, and he leaves the circle time instead of attending to the kids. And this is the joke. It's supposed to be a child-centered education system where the child is in the center. But no, he sees me quietly talking to the woman, and I'm not miserable enough, so he has to make me miserable. And I'm already really suffering because there's such a lack of joy. There's just such a lack of enthusiasm and just connection. And one child wants to sit next to me, and he's not allowed to. He has to keep distance from me. I'm like a leper. You can't tell the kids this is so and so and she's visiting school. You have to kind of, I don't know. No, I didn't learn the language. Now, I don't want to tell you how old I am, but I'm pretty old and I have a master's in education and I've been in a lot of schools. And I really think that by the time I would have learned the language, which God knows what the language is, I probably would be close to, to leaving Earth. That's all I can say. I'm not that old, but still, you have to go through a process. It sounds like a cult, but okay. Going back to that moment, so he leaves circle time, comes to me, and in a very aggressive says, "You're not doing anything. Go pick up the markers." And that's really child-centered, telling an adult woman twice his age in a very ugly tone of voice to pick up the markers. So I said, and it's not like I didn't do anything. I was washing dishes. I was doing all kinds of, work. And I never understood why you don't teach kids responsibility. Like, if you do something, aren't you supposed to put the markers away? Isn't that? No. This is a special system where the kids don't learn responsibility. Because he said, when the moment is gone, it's gone. So if the child isn't told it when he's right there, then you do it for them. So he's yelling at me to pick up the markers, and I'm like, don't talk to me like that. And he's like, you've got to leave. And then he calls the woman in charge, whom I interviewed with, and she says, you have to leave, as if I'm the problem. Parents pay thousands of shekels for this private shitty school. And the funny thing is, this method, I was years ago in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in a school like that, and that's not at all how the system works. First of all, everybody's very respectful. There was an elderly woman there. Everybody's talking to each other in nice, quiet voices. It's very, people are very respectful to each other, because without respect, there's no education, in my opinion. And he's like, kids are aware of everything, so you have to really speak quietly because they're copying you. No, they weren't copying me. I was silent and they was screaming. No, they're not. And they're just behaving as normal. And I thought that there were like special needs kids maybe in this method, because why else would a parent need to put their kids in a private kindergarten when they could send them to a public one? All I can say is, I've been to several public school kindergartens, and not all of them were good because, it depends on the staff. But this had so lack of joy, no music, no creativity. The kids were like, there was no, it was so stern. And the way the adults had to pick up after the kids, it just reminded me how I trained my kids not to take responsibility, to do whatever they want, how most parents make the mistake of teaching their kids, but paying thousands of shekels for people to teach your kids not to be responsible and not to care about other people and to run with scissors. And then there's a special language, which is put the scissors down. It's not a special language. And if I would have said it, he would have been yelling at me. The man is a control freak. I think he had like a personality disorder. He kept going back, like leaving the kindergarten, not watching the kids, and which is why I didn't see the kid chasing another one with scissors. No, so the logo of this school, nobody takes responsibility. You do whatever the hell you want, and when a person comes, you don't interact with them, you don't talk to them. Instead of introducing just basic manners. This is so-and-so, and she's coming to look at the school to see maybe she can work there. So they chased me basically off the school, just go away, after about an hour and a half. Meanwhile, during this hour and a half, I was washing dishes, putting them away, cutting vegetables and bread and cheese, and giving it to the kids. And the kids could eat breakfast from 7:30 to 1:30, 11:30, which means the kids had from 7:30 to 11:30. They had 2 hours where the kids could just constantly eat and eat and eat and eat without. And kids sometimes also overeat. They would just take food, no limits, and do whatever they want, not put away the dishes, nothing. I think that's considered an education system. I mean, they must be insane if a person with a master's degree like me, who spent 3 years in Boston writing a thesis on how to empower kids, that's not how you empower kids. You know how you empower kids? You give them limits, you show them the way, And yes, you are definitely a role model, but that means also not talking loudly in a room full of people because it's overwhelming. Speaking in another tone when you're indoors than outdoors. Also, maybe opening windows and not putting on electricity, wasting electricity. Maybe not constantly using paper towels. Like they wipe dishes with paper towels, do everything with paper towels, throw away plastic. This is the most not ecological place I've ever been to. So the kids learn to disregard their environment, disregard other people, and the kids were really sweet, except the kid that I think the kid that was chasing other kids with scissors, maybe that's not like something rare. Maybe that's what happens when you don't give kids limits and explain to them and let them learn by themselves. Let's see what happens if you stab the kids with a scissor. No, thank you. I should have found the strength to leave. It was like a trial day, but why should, what I really don't get is why I have to prove myself and my age with my education to people that are half my age. Instead of respecting education, experience, and the fact that I'm a mother of 3 grown children, people of these types are despicable. They're young, they don't have children, or maybe they have a baby, and they think they know everything. And the way they disrespect a person twice their age in front of kids is the way kids are going to watch and hopefully don't learn, because hopefully they have a better role model at home. But why would people send their kids to this private school, who's, by the way, far away from anyone's? It's not that people live next to the school, it's far away from anyone's. Like, even if you live not too far, it's in the middle of nowhere. On the way out, I saw animals without shade, without water, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, people actually pay money for this. This is quality. Maybe in Israel, letting children do whatever they want is quality, but to me, it just seems that's the normal way. That's the uneducated child, the untrained child. And it's definitely not, and I'm going to say it, it's definitely not what Maria Montessori, the Italian educator, meant in her method. Absolutely, she would have been rolling in her grave had she seen that child chasing the other kids with scissors, children not respecting other children, and this kindergarten teacher openly screaming at me in front of kids. I think if people pay money for this, they should have their head examined. And by the way, I forgot to mention we're in a war situation, and I didn't even know. I didn't see bomb shelter. Nobody told me about it. They didn't ask me for any documents. I could have been a mass murderer for all they care. They didn't care. And the salary they pay is absolutely, it's what a person gets paid to sell pizza or coffee, and yet the parents pay a lot more, and they pay so low, so the people there are obviously not people with an education. Or this kindergarten teacher said, oh, I studied this method. I don't know what he studied, but he's definitely not, he doesn't have like, what is it, 5% of the experience I have with children. And the way he talked to me, I was very humble. I was like, be a guru, be a yogi, but I'm just like, I can't believe this happened. And you know what my son says? Tragedy plus time equals comedy. Well, not everything we can laugh at, obviously, but this one day I will be just like, what the hell just happened? Kind of like, how did I even think to come there? And they even wanted me to come to, they give like, you have to stay after your work 2 hours. Like, it's not enough to be from 7:30 in the morning till 4:30. You have to stay 2 hours once a week. They teach you the method. They teach you how to not give kids limits. And I said, well, I have a dog with epilepsy, and no, that's not, can't you just give the dog? I said, no, she has to have the pill at a certain hour, and I'm not going to be able to do it, because when you work in kindergarten, you don't think you'll be home at 7 or 7:30. And especially when you get paid like minimum wage. Oh my gosh, I'm just thinking I am the most naive person in the world. Those kids have families that can take care of them, fortunately, but I'm just thinking this people make a mockery of education. And I have a feeling that in Israel, private education is like the worst, the worst. Because so far from what I've seen, so I've seen places where people send their kids when they're too young to go to the public kindergarten system. But in this case, it's kids that could have gone to the public kindergarten system near their home, and their parents chose because they thought they have a better education. How is not teaching your kids limits? I mean, these kids that are going to have such a hard time fitting in society. They're going to be like, Israeli kids are so wild anyway, but to send them to a place where they don't learn, like you're not supposed to run after other people with scissors. They don't learn to communicate in a quiet tone. They don't learn that you don't just put on electricity and put on air conditioning when you can open a window. When you don't learn, you can be outside instead of screaming in a closed room with 33 kids. It's just so mind-boggling. It's like a cult, really, where people believe ideas that don't make any sense. And I'm so happy I'm not going there. I am going to another private kindergarten next week, and I have a lot of hope because the woman I spoke to sounds really nice. And I should have seen like the crazy lady sign when the woman was like very young and still kind of thinking that the salary she offered me was the salary offered to a person with a master's in education. And I don't know what I expected, but I'm sorry, I can't work as a teacher's assistant with a master's in education. You either give me a role where I can teach kids, or you just don't take me for work. Not because I have an ego, but because I have all this education and knowledge and experience, and I'm just not built to be a teacher's assistant. I'm not built to cut tomatoes and cucumber when I can do so much more, and I have so much to give kids. And sorry, that's not why I'm in this business. Otherwise I would work in a kitchen in a restaurant. People study in order to teach, not in order to cut cucumbers and tomatoes. It can be part of your work, but not when it's like the main part of your work. And a person who has a personality disorder is not even with the kids. He's not even watching them. He kept going back and forth, and he kept making me feel like I was the problem. And this is what crazy people do. They make you feel like you're the problem. They project all their madness because he had a loud voice, and he said to me, "You have a loud voice!" And like the lack of awareness. I know I have a loud voice, which is why I would never tell somebody off about having a loud voice, because I have it. And I would, if I would say to somebody something, I would say it in a polite, respectful way, because respect is for me the building block of education. If you don't conduct yourself with respect towards other people and animals, it's the opposite of education. It's just, if my dog has more education than that kindergarten. My dog is more respectful than those kids. And they're nice kids. They're nice kids. It's just that kindergarten teacher is very worried. It just worries me to think that he's actually in a position where he can influence kids. And the way he spoke to me, it doesn't seem to me that I'm like this horrific, horrible, irritating person. Because you should know, the way an abusive person speaks to you is the way he speaks to other people as well. It might not be the kids, it might be other adults, but this is not personal. An abusive person is not pointing you out. He just thinks that you're vulnerable for some reason because you came to work at a very low, he probably knows the wages, and he thinks, oh, you must be a stupid person if you're willing to accept these conditions. Or maybe he just doesn't care and just had a bad day. He just feels like dumping it. I had a social worker, same thing. She screamed at me and I was like, what the hell is going on? And I really wanted to work in that place. But when people dump on you, there's no way you can work with them. There's no way you can put up with it, and there's no way it can be called education.